me today for this palm reading example. We are going to be looking at two palms of the same person, the left and the right hand, and that right hand has a Simian line as well. So the fate line then, pardon me, the fate line rises from the moon. And looks like it tends to stop just before the age of 35, and it changes course. And now the fate line continues over here and changes course slightly again after that, and probably several changes. We've got a couple of fate lines crossing through the other lines. So there's some changes in the future. But the first change especially is around before or around the 35-year mark, and where the career, the job or life situation shifts over to something else. So the person is most likely not enjoying what they are doing, and they decide to make a change in their life around about that age. Now, looking at the headline, that is confirming some changes as well. This headline looks like it used to be long and it has actually broken. A long headline such as this, sorry, I'm not following the lines exactly. A long headline such as this is somebody who uses the moon energy, creative, nurturing, moody, sometimes too moody, sometimes depending on other indicators it can show signs of things like depression. So people with the long headline as such need to be careful to use their imagination positively. They should take on something creative or use their imagination in positive, constructive ways. So going back to this broken headline, whenever the headline is broken, it shows a time that person will change their way of thinking. There's a change in their outlook on life, and the headline branches to the heart line, literally connects to the heart line. And what that means is the mind is connecting to the emotions in a strong way. So their feelings of achievement and power from the headline is felt on an emotional level. And it is branching underneath the ring finger, which is the finger of creativity and social life, etc. So the person's way of thinking is definitely always connected somehow in an emotional way, and probably regarding their creative abilities. There is a health line which rises towards Mercury. There's a second health line from the Lifeline. So there's two lines of Mercury there. So it's possible that it is what's called a broken Mercury or health line. And I'm not sure in this photo if it's not 100% clear, but it looks like there's another section of the health line there. So that can indicate potential health issues in the past. There's a line on the bottom, which I often see this called the line of addiction. It does not necessarily mean the person has an addiction. It's also called an escape line, where the person might like to get away at times from the normal place. And the girdle of Venus is very fragmented. There is a definite signs of girdle of Venus, which runs in parts, but there's also sections of it broken up over here, which I call that it has a broken heart line, a floating broken heart line mixed with a girdle of Venus. So that gives much more sensitivity to the nature. It shows more passion or a wider range of emotions than your average person. It can also show exaggerated moods or someone who's very flirtatious. So there's a variety of meanings because it is a combined floating heart line and girdle of Venus. Overall, the girdle of Venus shows sensitivity, so the person might not be able to control their emotional reactions as well as somebody else without those lines. Now, I'll mention this cross, even though I don't usually believe in such symbols, but the cross on the mount of Jupiter is supposed to suggest a happy marriage and someone who's financially well off in their marriage. Okay, moving on to the right hand. And here we have the very obvious Simian line. Single line, no headline, no heart line. However, again, there's this floating heart line cross girdle of Venus going on. So you could definitely say that that adds sensitivity and intensity to the already intense nature of the Simian line. If you haven't seen my Simian line videos, you might be interested. Go back and check those out. I have at least 9 videos there on this line alone because it's such an interesting subject. If you remember, on the left hand I mentioned that the Lifeline had an achievement line, 2 achievement lines. It's also evident on the Lifeline here, and I would approximately put that age to just before the age of 40. Timing on the lines is always an estimate, so that's quite close. There is evidence of a double fate line. This could also act as a partial headline. Many Simians have these lines that sort of just fall away from the Simian line, and they kind of act like a headline, so it gives the person more practical and rational thinking from the usual Simian, whose practical and emotional thoughts tend to sort of amalgamate. And when there is this line that comes away, that helps with the ability to think logically instead of emotionally. But you can also look at it as a second fate line because of the way it's formed here and appears to cross over towards the Saturn, the middle finger. So that indicates potentially two kinds of career. and eventually amalgamating into one career, probably before the age of 50. Simian line timing is quite difficult because I use the headline and the heart line to estimate timeline. So on the headline crossing here, it would be 35. If it was on the heart line, it would be 50. So I'm going to safely assume that it's somewhere between that. So around about the 40 mark, which goes actually really well with the timing of this achievement line on the lifeline. And there's also the same health lines on this hand, a double health line, Mercury line, and it seems to rise up into the Mercury, so that is a business line. It's actually one of the markings I have on my previous article that I wrote. If you've checked out my website, destinypalmistry.com, you'll see in there an article about money triangle and money lines, and that is one of the lines called the money line or business line. So it's a good sign or line to have on the palm. And also the success line is very evident here from around about that same age, around that pre-40, around 40. Very estimate timing. Success line, and it becomes a dual success line and also has a trident, which is a very good indicator. Another one of them money lines, which shows that the person should most times always be able to find money for what they need. So those are the success lines showing that he will be satisfied with what he's achieved. And there's also what's called inspiration line or influence line that rises to the success line. So the person's idea or project will be what helps this success, because it comes from the mind. The influence, it's his own mind influence is helping him eventually become successful in what he's doing. The double fate lines towards the end, that also shows that he's probably got more than one thing going at the same time. And that's about it. As you can see here, I meant to mention the amount of moon is very clear and full compared to the left hand. So that's a positive sign that the energy for the creativity is still there. The amount of Venus is slightly deflated, not as clear, but probably equal to the left hand. I think that's about all for this lesson, and I hope you've learned something today. Thanks for joining me again. See ya.